Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have absolutely breaking news coming out of the Bryansk Oblast inside the Russian Federation as a massive ammunition explosion has completely leveled a major Russian munitions facility. We were able to see multiple videos and pictures coming out of the explosion, and we actually have a couple of them right here. According to the information that we have, this explosion happened in the Karachevsky district of the Bryansk Oblast overnight. From what we understand, the 67th Brigade, and let me make sure that I'm getting that correct, apparently it is the 67th Arsenal of the Main Missile and Artillery Directorate that was targeted and stricken inside the Bryansk Oblast. But you can hear the roar of the explosion in the distance as it continues to burn most of the munitions within the facility, completely destroying it and rendering it unusable for the Russian Federation from this point forward. You see the explosion continuing to burn as the commentator states how messed up this is, and it is really messed up, because the Russians are not going to have any more usable munitions, period, at least from this ammunition depot in this area of the Bryansk Oblast. We then also got to see some additional clips as well, once again showing the explosion from another angle inside of Russia. To say the least, the popcorn is ready. But moving on from that clip and into our next one, we also get to see the explosion from another angle. And finally, one of our last little pieces that we have right here is one last clip, letting us hear the sounds of the explosions and also the roaring orange flame, which has pretty much turned the night into dawn. But nevertheless, the explosion was significant, and we were able to get just a little bit of additional video and picture evidence once again to back this up in the form of another video that was actually filmed at a pretty high angle from a multi-story building looking off into the distance at the ammunition facility. And we could see it once again exploding and burning off in the distance. This is one of the largest ammunition depots within this area of the Bryansk Oblast, and from what we understand, it is not the same size as the other munition depots that were hit a little bit further up and in the area around the Tver Oblast, or really anywhere else within that area. From what we understand, this is a moderate-sized munition depot. It's not one of the 13 or 14 mega ammo facilities that we've seen getting hit in the past. This one is somewhere close to that, but it's not really within that category. Nevertheless, the attack on this Russian munitions depot and the subsequent explosion will once again be depriving the Russian Federation of a great deal of munitions that they rely on to be able to keep their war effort running. And the more that these munitions run out, and the higher amount of them that are destroyed by the Ukrainians, the less and less the Russians have for an available supply reserve, meaning that they're going to get closer and closer to having to rely directly on the munitions being produced at the factory that day than all the munitions that they've stockpiled over decades of the Russian Federation's history and also that of the Soviet Union. But moving on from that, interesting enough, we were also able to hear that a massive fire broke out in Moscow today as well. From what we understand, this is not a Ukrainian partisan attack or a Ukrainian drone attack. This is something else entirely. No one was injured, but nevertheless, the central market in the Noginsk area of Moscow burst into flames and about 10,000 square feet burned to the ground.
Обновляем галерею. У меня сейчас вся галерея в этом будет. Офигеть, это пипец. Небо прям черное стало. Ты видишь? Я, кстати, никогда в реальной жизни не видела пожара.
We're going to be trying to get more details and information on this one as much as we possibly can. Usually fires in Moscow are pretty much dead ends. We get to see them, but we don't get to hear any aftermath of them at all, because the Russian government usually covers up anything about them incredibly well. But we did get to see in our next clip here the fire once again. And in our next little bit, we also got to see the fire once again from a car near the bridge. But still, an incredibly interesting occurrence because we, once again, just to put this out there, do not really know what caused this fire. We can once again see it from one last final angle, but still another massive fire that broke out in Moscow, and we have absolutely no idea why this happened or how serious the damage was. Once again, it seems to be a commercial target that ended up catching on fire, and we're calling it a target because of a lack of better wordage. But we don't know much about this thing. It's still one of the biggest fires we've seen in Moscow recently, but beyond that, nothing much more is known about it. However, moving us all the way around the world and over into the Korean Peninsula, we have been able to hear something that seems to be somewhat serious, and it also looks as though North Korea is getting ready to conduct some sort of armed escalation against South Korea. Although I'll be telling you all while that isn't as big a concern as it sounds, it still is something a little bit concerning. But we have been able to hear that the North Korean government has officially stated today that the Korean People's Army, the Army of North Korea, has initiated an operation to completely sever all rail and road connections to South Korea. Additionally, robust defensive structures are set to be constructed along relevant areas of interest. This is something that we got as an official statement today from the People's Republic of Korea, which is North Korea. North Korea is a country that has been escalating with South Korea for a good bit now. We have seen them throw the turd balloons across the border several times, and it seems now that the diplomatic tensions are not subsiding whatsoever. Not only with the statement that apparently North Korean soldiers have finally entered Ukraine, we are now also starting to see that they are beginning to shut down all border and road crossings of any type into South Korea. We do not know what the actual reason for this is yet, and we're still trying to figure that out as time goes by, but one thing is for certain, the setting up defensive structures along points of interest is something that North Korea has not done for decades at this point, and it seems as though this may be leading towards some sort of an armed confrontation, or at least in a limited form, across the Korean border near the DMZ. A lot of people are also going to be wondering, does this mean the full-scale war is going to be happening on the peninsula or not? And the chances are is that it most likely will not turn into a full-scale war. We have seen historically in the past that North and South Korea have quite literally come to blows since the end of the Korean War in 1953, but it's never actually produced a full-scale conventional war like was seen during the initial Korean War of 1950 to 1953. This is leading us to believe that if anything is to happen, it's mostly going to be a limited exchange of fire in between North and South Korea, and then the confrontation will end right then and there, and there will most likely be some sort of a brokered uneasy peace that will be made during that time. We do know that the North Koreans are not able to take over and capture South Korea, and we also know due to the economic squalor of North Korea, South Korea would never wish to do the same to them either. So this peninsula is largely deadlocked, but still the tensions are very high, and it's something to keep notice of because this could evolve into a larger situation, such as an armed conflict, or it may even draw in, due to a defensive pact, the People's Republic of China. Although we will, of course, have to wait and see if that is the case or not. But moving on out of the Korean Peninsula and that kind of big and concerning news today about what's going on over there and what may be happening here in the near future, we were also able to hear that Lithuania inside of NATO is taking preemptive actions to deal with the Russian Federation before they become a significant threat. We were able to see pictures that came out last night that Lithuania is shoring up their bridges entirely, even with dragon's teeth and other kinds of obstructions to stop any kind of Russian armored vehicles from crossing the border into Lithuania. This bridge actually borders Kaliningrad, and Kaliningrad is specifically a small Russian enclave that exists within largely the heart of Eastern Europe, near Poland and Lithuania. Kaliningrad only exists because at the end of World War II, the Soviet Union actually annexed and absorbed a part of East Prussia, the northern part of East Prussia that included Königsberg, and that is the area that exists today known as Kaliningrad, or the Bryansk Oblast. This oblast, from what we understand, has an incredibly large number of Russian forces, infantry, armored, air force, and naval, that are currently stationed at it, and it's been a great concern of NATO allies within this region that if anything was to kick off, the Russians would try and attempt, along with the Belarusians, a closure of the Suwalki Gap, which is a 35 to 40 mile wide area in between Kaliningrad and the Belarusian border that Lithuania and Poland use to be able to transit north and south. Also, all NATO members also use this land corridor as well to transit north and south from into the Baltics and also into Central Europe. This is, however, a very big weak point for NATO, at least strategically in this area, and so we can see that Lithuania has already prepared some sort of obstructions to slow down a Russian advance if it was to ever to occur and a conventional war was to actually happen. We also got some very interesting news coming out of Ukraine itself, as we were able to hear today that the Ukrainians have seized a Cameroonian vessel that apparently illegally arrived in a Crimean port and then decided to sell it to Ukraine right afterwards. The story is absolutely ridiculous, to be entirely honest, and according to what we know, this is the information we have at hand. Ukraine has confiscated the cargo ship USKO MFU, reports the State Border Guard Service. The vessel, under the Cameroonian flag, illegally entered ports in occupied Crimea for commercial activities. It was detained in Odessa by maritime security and has been transferred to state ownership by court order. The captain faces charges for violating entry laws to occupied territories. And we actually see the USKO MFU right here, and this has got to be one of the ugliest merchant ships I've ever seen. The actual bridge and the superstructure is one of the most bare bones and hideous ones that I've ever seen. It literally looks like someone took a small apartment building and put it onto a ship. It's absolutely terrible looking, but nevertheless, this ship has been transferred into the state ownership of Ukraine and may be used to try and ship Ukrainian grains out of the country and elsewhere. But still, a very interesting occurrence, because we've rarely ever seen the Ukrainians detain or seize any cargo vessels even of this kind of size, because none of them have been stupid enough to go to Ukraine after they've traveled to Russia. Meanwhile, inside of Feodosia, we were also able to see that the massive fire that was caused the other day by a Ukrainian attack is still raging 3 days later. When you see one of the clips right here showing the fire still belching into the skies, filling the entire area of southern Crimea with a toxic thick smoke of refined fuel products. We can also see, once again, more pictures from the Feodosia area, once again showing us that the oil facility is on fire. And of course, like usual, we have not seen any Russian firefighting efforts trying to quell the flames or stop them from continuing to spread through the rest of the facility. That is incredibly normal at this point, and while earlier in the war we did see that firefighting efforts would usually tamp down the damage that would be caused, at this point in the war, fires seem to be burning largely out of control and are able to inflict as much damage as they can in the amount of time that they have to burn anything in the area that's flammable. So it seems as though things are going incredibly well in this area for the Ukrainians and the massive attack that they made the other day. And we also have more backup videos here and pictures to show you all of the fire at Feodosia, but we've largely shown pretty much the same thing just a minute ago, and so I'm not going to show the second one. Largely just more of a backup than anything. But moving on out of Crimea and down into the Middle East, we were able to see that tensions and hostile actions in between Iranian proxies and the State of Israel is continuing today around the area of northern Israel and southern Lebanon, as we were able to see that interceptions did occur around the area of Safed by the Iron Dome system, as Hezbollah launched one of its largest unguided rocket attacks since the beginning of the conflict on October 7th of last year. And we see the Iron Domes continuing to intercept the incoming Hezbollah rockets overhead. The amount of interceptors and Hezbollah rockets airborne at one given time is absolutely insane. Dozens in the air in just this single clip alone. We can also, interestingly enough, hear the Japanese emergency alert in the background. And although this is the State of Israel, that's a little weird. I think everyone could agree that's pretty bizarre. We're hearing the Japanese EWS system inside of Israel. That's the end of the clip right there, but still pretty interesting to see, and good to know that the Israelis were able to intercept and destroy most incoming Hezbollah rockets again. And not only that, the Israeli Navy was also involved in shooting down Hezbollah drones that were trying to make their way into Israel itself, near to the area of Haifa. We were able to see one of these drones right here being targeted and destroyed by an Israeli frigate that was in the area during that time. From what we understand, while there isn't a lot of rapid news coming out, the Israeli ground operation inside of southern Lebanon is still pressing forward, and we have heard that they have taken some losses, but not as many as they have claimed to have inflicted upon the Hezbollah forces within that region. And we also understand that Israel is still preparing for a massive strike against the Islamic Republic of Iran in retaliation for the hundreds of ballistic missiles that were fired off nearly a week ago. We are going to be continuing to keep an eye on that news as best as we possibly can, and if anything is to happen, we're going to immediately notify all of y'all and go live with a breaking news stream telling y'all about the details of this massive attack that Israel will be conducting against Iran, and also the massive damage that most likely will result from that as well. But with that, we have actually covered all of the breaking news that we have today, and I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching, all the way from the beginning to the end if you did. And if you did get to this point, put a little LSA down in the comments section, just so that way I can know y'all did watch the whole thing. I would be really happy to know that y'all did. That would be pretty cool. But still, a huge thanks to y'all all once again. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And support us on Patreon. The link is in the description below. And I gotta give a massive thanks to everyone who's been supporting this channel on Patreon and also on the Super Chats on the live streams, because y'all are the only things that help this channel to keep being possible and help us to keep delivering the news. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and also Matthew will see you all tomorrow for the other short war summary, and I will see you all in the next one.